Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the show on this Friday, the 8th of March, 2024. Thank you for tuning in. Glad to have you guys here. Fear. And what can really trigger that? I watched a movie years ago called The Trigger Effect, and it made quite an impression on me, And I also seen this trigger effect in action during the COVID crisis. Let me explain. People don't necessarily, when they get under extreme fear, I'll explain to you something about this. Fear is based on just exactly how morbidly dangerous whatever you're dealing with is. Something has a moderate danger level, then the fear level is lesser than something that has an extreme danger level. Maybe say we had a town back in, let's call it Bedrock in the caveman times, and say a whole bunch of people lived in a bunch of caves, and they had a little road going through, and there's so many of them, and say a big Tyrannosaurus Rex came into town that was going to gobble people up and eat them alive. The fear factor would be extremely high, and because the fear factor is high, the reaction would be very high or extreme to that fear factor. So what is the trigger that's causing the fear for the people to react? I mean, the cave women, they're rolling the stone into the door of the cave, Oh, what's a Tyrannosaurus Rex going to eat us all alive? They're all frightened. How people react to fear depends. One of the factors is how dangerous is it what you're dealing with. Now, we were dealing with the COVID crisis, and there was a lot of fear in the country. But on a scale of 1 to 10, I would rate it about a 5, the level of fear with COVID, because you had a lot of people who believed it was very dangerous, and they were very, very frightened of it, and they were very, very frightened at the time. And you had a lot of other people, maybe half of the other people, so 50% of the other people, who were like, it's just a cold. I ain't worried about that. I'm going to work, and they forgot all about COVID, and they watched the reaction of the other people to the fear. But it did generate situations. You'll all remember people fighting in shopping malls and stuff. You're wearing a mask. No, you're not wearing a mask. When they're rolling on the ground, kicking and punching one another. You remember that? That's kind of, I think, where the term Karen started, People were, they have a derogatory name for people who protest and too much. They'll protest too much. They call them Karens, And so during that period in time, there was a lot of fear reactions, and a lot of buildings and cities started to burn in the United States. Now, here's a list behind my head right here of a lot of buildings that started to burn. Restaurants, a lot of them were in Minneapolis, St. Paul region. These are a list, and I can just go down the list of all these buildings that burnt due to protests and riots and everything else. It was most of it was fear-induced. Fear of not just COVID, but also fear of police brutality and etc. And it goes on, the list of these buildings that are all burnt out. But, this is the tip of the iceberg, because I rate this as about a 5 on a scale of 1 to 10 of fear factor. You start to get something that starts to get over a 5, a fear factor, so more than half of the population, maybe 60% of the population is absolutely terrified. And this will increase exponentially, just like a pipe size, You got a 1/2-inch pipe. It'll carry a certain amount of water. But you move to a 3/4-inch size pipe, which is only half again larger, but it carries like 4 times as much water. And so when you move up, this works the same way with earthquakes on a Richter scale. When you move up from a 5 fear factor, or 50% of the population is frightened, like during COVID, and you start moving up to 60% or 70% of the population is frightened, then it's not just these buildings that are burning, it's whole cities that'll start to burn to the ground. The people will start to act in an unnerved way. You'll see an increase in road rage incidents, tenfold. Crimes, violent crime, everything will just... And at a certain point, when you start to get like 70, 80, 90% of the population is gripped with fear, then you can see they will burn everything to the ground. Civilization will be burnt to the ground at that point. So, where am I going with all this, guys? Well, COVID induced a lot of fear. And the fear went away when people realized, hey, I'm not going to die from this thing, you know. But later, things started to calm down a little bit. And they started to enter into what's called a new normal. Now we're dealing with something else that's causing fear. And I would say, in just my estimation, that 20 to 30% of the population right now is gripped with fear of a nuclear war and nuclear winter. But this is a very potent fear. But we only have about 20 to 30% of the population who actually believe that this actually could happen and happen soon. And they're starting to be fearful from it. Maybe 20 to 30%. And a lot of the rest of the people are either not paying attention or they don't believe it'll really happen. And they have something called normalcy bias. But let's analyze the fear of nuclear war. From our very youth, when we're about 5 or 6 years old probably, we start to learn the fundamentals of what nuclear war means in the modern age. We start to learn about mutually assured destruction. We start to learn that there can't be a winner and it'll destroy the earth and kill us all, basically. And we learn that quite at an early age. Probably by the time we're 10 years old, we already know about that. All the kids, a lot of them know. Especially by the time they're a teenager. Let's put it that way. And so this is a lifelong induced fear of something that most people think will never actually happen. So they put that fear to the back of their mind because they think, okay, this is not going to happen. And so I don't really need to be frightened of it, even though I know about it. I don't really need to be frightened about it. So it's in the back of their mind. But it's probably one of the premium of all fears in life. Right up there with catching cancer or something like that, you know, but they put it in the back of their mind. And that's a survival instinct that we all have that we use, you know. But that fear amongst the general population can be brought from the back of their mind to forefront and center and create such a fear impact that it would be way beyond what COVID ever produced or induced. And it can happen very suddenly. With situations that could happen in the world, like one, we actually enter into a World War III scenario, and the fighting actually begins between superpowers. Or two, some sort of a nuclear attack is launched, and it might not necessarily be from Russia, it might not necessarily be from China or the United States. It might be from a sub-nuclear nation, a nuclear nation that's not the top dogs, you know. It's like there's a lot of these nuclear nations out there that are not the big three. North Korea, for instance, nuclear nation. Pakistan, nuclear nation. Question mark about Iran. Question mark about Israel. India, nuclear nation. I mean, there's a lot of them out there, nuclear nations, that are not what you would relate to, like France. Well, maybe people don't know France is a nuclear country. United Kingdom, nuclear nation, you know. So it's not just Russia, it's not just the United States that has nuclear weapons. And so, basically, I guess where I'm going with all of this is, right now, with probably more than 70% of the population, this nuclear fear is pushed to the back of their mind. But if something happens in the world with this ever-increasing tensions that's happening right now as we march closer and closer to a wider conflict in this situation. If that comes to the front of their mind, we could see something happen that I've been talking about on my channel for quite a long time. I call it a human stampede. It's basically when people panic from fear. And that can manifest itself in so many different ways. But primarily, it's that fear reaction when it's in groups of people and they basically gang together. It's very disturbing what can happen and how fast it can happen. So I wanted to point that out to you guys. Now, we're going to take a look at the news right now. I'm going to tell you guys, it just points to me how close we're getting to total anarchy reigning the world. I mean, the whole world just falling into a state of... We've built a house of cards. Humanity has built a house of cards here. And a house of cards, you know how quick and easy it can fall down? That's because our whole system that we've generated right here, we've moved into this so-called modern age of modern technology, and it's so dependent upon the infrastructure that's put in place that is so vulnerable to attack, especially attack in a World War III type situation. Very, very dangerous. So now the Biden administration is ordering an emergency mission to build a port in Gaza for aid shipments. Well, you got Hamas right there. And the way I see it is they get that port and they get it all set up and they get soldiers defending it. Could there be some sort of an attack by Hamas on it or something? I mean, it's just going to be creating a big target on its back. And if there's some sort of an attack, would the United States get directly involved in things, you know? But I do agree that this is a good thing to try to make a port so that they can bring in these food shipments and stuff. So it is a good thing. I'm glad to see them doing it because there's 2 million Palestinians who are facing starvation right now. Well, it's good that they can bring the food in, but I see it as being it could be a target for some sort of a terrorist operation or more. Very dangerous world we live in, and it's just absolutely... Now, Macron, the leader of France, he's saying there's absolutely no limit to the Ukraine support, he's told the party leaders. And, you know, the firm stance, from what I heard, I didn't listen to it yet. The president gave a speech. Well, I'm going to get into that in a second. We're going to talk about that. I heard that support for Ukraine is number one on NATO's agenda, pretty much. I mean, they're not planning on letting Russia have Ukraine. But Russia wants to take Ukraine. So can you see the problem there? Now Poland's building up their military as fast as they can right now. Maybe, I don't know, maybe 100,000 troops there. And it might turn into being more than just a temporary deployments and stuff. Might turn into permanent deployments and stuff because it's the front line against NATO. That's where they got the real power stationed right now is in Poland. They're moving a lot more power into Poland to try to defend the line because Ukraine is already somewhat compromised. And we're basically looking at a situation where we're already in sort of a quasi-war. Third World War, quasi. I say quasi. It's not really yet. It's not officially declared. It's not. But it's already, the seeds are already planted and they're starting to sprout. Moving on, taking a look here. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. This is one of these satellite nations that have nuclear weapons I told you about. They're not the big one. They're not the United States, not Russia, but they still have nuclear weapons, and they can actually hit the United States with these nuclear weapons. And Kim Jong-un, he's ordered heightened war preparations. They're preparing for war. They're marching their troops. Getting their troops ready to go. Oiling up their guns, North Korea is. Right here in the United States, things are getting really, I'm telling you, they're introducing a bill right now. You're not even going to have TikTok on your phone if this goes through. Bill could make TikTok unavailable in the United States. It's advancing quickly in the House. What do you think of that? Hong Kong, they're cracking down. They're going to align their city more closely with mainland China, and I guess from what I gather, if there's anybody who they're going to charge them and put them away for life if anybody starts to organize some sort of a revolt against them or anything like that. Now Biden gave his feisty State of the Union speech, and he is selling voters on a second term. And I'll tell you, just like I said the other day, I think it's lining up for Trump against Biden. And I heard something about his speech. Somebody said he was very coherent in his speech. From what I heard, that's what I heard anyway. I don't know. I haven't listened to his speech yet. Taking a look at the silver price today. Precious metals today silver is down 10 cents at $24.17. Well, it's not down a lot. It's been on a bit of a tear the last couple days. Seen the price go from the 22s to the 24s. I tend to think it's going to stay on this tear. I think this is just a little nothing goes up in a straight line sort of thing. Look at the gold price today. Gold is at $21.70, and gold's up $11.80. First gut reaction is gold. But then when you start to learn about the real fundamentals behind the two precious metals, the connoisseur learns about the fundamentals about silver, and then silver starts to look more attractive. But first gut reaction is gold. And of course, it's easier to soak a lot of big money into gold than it is silver. I mean, when we're talking big money, allocation starts to come in. And a lot of people out there have done shows on this before, and I've said how the rich, allocation is a problem for them. And a lot of people don't agree with me. They say, especially when it concerns silver, they don't agree with me. They say, oh, they can buy it, no problem. They got places to store it, etc. When you buy a lot of silver, and I'm talking a dump truck full of silver, maybe 40,000 pounds of silver, you got to have a vault. Rich people are not going to dig a hole in their backyard. They got to have a vault, and then there's allocation, there's logistics involved to actually picking the metal up and getting it to the vault, and then having the vault guarded, and etc., etc. It's not as simple as clicking a mouse. Now, they're used to just clicking a mouse to allocate they buy almost anything they want. They can click a mouse and then it's theirs instantaneously. Silver's different. But believe me, the really rich that would buy like maybe 1 million ounces to a time, they will solve the allocation problem when the time is right. And then you'll see the silver really disappear, because they're not going to be buying a tube of silver. They're going to be buying quantities that'll just drain it completely. And it's almost drained now. Silver, the solar right now, is just going to chomp up all of the supply. This new green initiatives and stuff, and the silver production that's used in solar applications is going off the charts. They're going to want it all for that. So who's going to have anything left over? Nothing. They're going to gobble it all up. Just like they're going to have a spaghetti dinner and everybody's happy. All the kids are happy. There's 8 kids. Spaghetti dinner. Oh, wow, we're all going to have spaghetti. And comes tromping into the yard is this 600-pound kid. And he's hungry. He's going to eat it all himself. That's the solar industry. They're going to have it all for themselves. Cryptocurrency today. What we're looking at is Bitcoin. It was 68,000 just a minute ago. It's dropped about 1,000 just that quick in a few minutes. Anyway, it's 66,988 right now. It dropped 2.42% in the last hour, I guess. And in the last 20 hours, it's down. 24 hours, it's down 0.5%. So it's running around 67,000 right now. Ethereum is 38,061. Now 3,861. It's like all of a sudden I got all you Ethereum guys really. But yeah, it's 3,862 right now. And XRP is at 61.1 cents. Taking a look at our Dow Jones Industrial Average, it's up 94 points today, and it's 38,885. Taking a look at crude oil. Where's my crude oil? Here it is. It's down 37 cents at 78.56 right now for crude. So we're staying under 80 bucks for now. Bonds and rates, we're looking at, well, mixed bag. The long end's rising. It's rose 1.5 basis points on the 30-year at 4.26. And the U.S. 10 years dropped almost a basis point, 0.7 of 1 basis point, to 4.08. 4.08. And the dollar index today, it's fallen, but not falling real fast today. It's fell 0.25 today so far. Thank you guys for listening to my show. Like and subscribe. Push that thumbs up button. We'll catch you guys in the next episode. And have a great afternoon, guys. Bye-bye.